Stephen Heuer is with us, and he is a nice fellow. He's a friend of mine. He is the founder of Synergistic Nutrition. It's the company that sends us the great One World Whey, and things that I use regularly from Stephen are One World Whey, the Synergy One, the cool stuff I talk about, and also Mineral Magic. But he's got all kinds of other products. So he's an inventor, a raconteur, Bachelor of Science degree as a naturopath, which was the a nutritional correspondence course, but he's been studying these things for a long time. He's done live cell therapy, ozone therapy, psychic surgery. He visited John of God in Brazil. He's done magnetic therapy. He tries a lot of stuff, and he went through a lot of stuff over his practice. He works with people around the world, and we've laid out a few ideas, which is pretty rare. We don't generally even know where we're going to go, but Stephen's a pretty meat and potatoes guy when it comes to this, so we're going to talk a lot about calcium in the soil, in our health, and why organic or how organic food may be failing to nourish us, even organic food, and lots of ideas that we'll chat about. So, Stephen Heuer, good morning.
Good morning, Patrick. Thank you for the thorough introduction.
Well, what do you think? Did I do okay?
Yeah, you did great.
Oh, thanks. I should get in the radio. Well, let's not get carried away. So, were you a sick little boy when you started looking at nutrition years ago?
No. Actually, I was really healthy. In fact, super athletic. Never got sick. And then, but because of the high sugar refined food diet that I grew up on, high stimulation diet, that led to cavities, and cavities led to mercury fillings. And finally, in 1976, they transitioned from mercury, copper, tin, silver fillings to removing the silver because silver prices were going up higher, and so they just made it mostly mercury and copper, and there's more conductivity between those two elements, which means there's 50 times more release of mercury from that kind of a filling. And I had 2 of those fillings put into my mouth in one setting when I was 15 and a half, and I got very, very sick, and I never recovered. I got all kinds of problems from it that basically made me become a nutritional hypochondriac.
Yeah, I'm a recovering hypochondriac myself, so I understand. So do you think, Stephen Heuer, that there are some people like yourself who maybe are more sensitive to this mercury in their mouth, or maybe the way the guy put them in, they just leak more? I guess there's no way of knowing for sure.
I think it's a combination of what you're born with inherently in your strength with regards to your liver and your body's ability to produce, detoxification chemicals. Phase 1 and Phase 2 chemicals produced by the liver, mostly glutathione, and that if you're doing that robustly, and if you don't kill off beneficial bacteria in the gut with antibiotics, that your body will neutralize the mercury vapor coming off your teeth to a large degree such that you continue to remain functional and seemingly symptom-free, although there are a certain number of cells being sacrificed daily because of their exposure to the mercury, either damaged permanently or killed, that reduces your level of mental and physical, you could say, optimum, that it's not at the level of perceptibility until decades have gone by, and then you just call it aging rather than calling it mercury toxicity.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting so old. Well, but people don't make any connection between what the vapors or the toxicity could be doing. Have no connection out there in the general world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is that those people that did get the mercury copper fillings, and when silver was removed, they have more of an exposure, and it's just kind of like one of those things, well, who knows what you got? I know that they implemented it in 76. How long they kept it in place, I don't know. And how many dentists did it, I don't know. I just know that if one of those fillings represents 50 fillings compared to the previous old fillings, because they off-gas 50 times the amount. So if you have 2 fillings put into your mouth at one setting, that's the equivalent of 100 fillings of the old variety that had a silver amalgam, and so that's why the effects were so devastating compared to earlier 7 other earlier fillings I'd had in my mouth previously.
Wow. Patrick Timpone with Stephen Heuer. We're going to have a good time this morning, talk about a lot of different things. I can remember over 30 years ago in the early 80s, I was fortunate enough to get my fillings out by a really cool dentist who was a student of actually Hal Huggins, right? So he was really kind of on top of his game, 30 years ago, and talking about the connection, Stephen, between dental caries and heart disease and stuff like that, and really a nice fellow. And I didn't really, I felt energetically, I could tell something really clicked. But he took them all out, in about a week. Energetically, I could really feel something good happened. Did you go through a detox when you got yours out?
No, excuse me. No, I didn't. Normally, normally, I don't know, but basically in my case, there was no change in symptoms. I still felt the chronic fatigue symptoms that I was experiencing at the time in 1991. I just gotten a viral infection from a lip balm on my lip that later I found out was herpes, that basically was another one of those straws that broke the camel's back type experience. And I got fillings out right after that to sort of like, make sure that my immune system was the least burdened and could maybe mount some kind of a defense. And so I had no improvement in how I felt after they were removed. In fact, actually, there was a problem that developed right after they were removed and replaced with this composite material. There was this tissue die-off in my gums that was became chronic. My inner gum lining was sloughing off in this one area.
Wow.
And so later on, 8 years later, I found out that the dentist had put into my mouth a material called herculite. So even though the dentist was trained correctly in safe removal of mercury, the material that he put in there, this thing called herculite, had radioactive isotopes in it because the dentists like to be able to see filling material very easily on X-ray.
Right,
so they put
right.
radioactive material in there, and that radioactivity was literally constantly irradiating out into my body and my mouth and causing the die-off of gums in my cheek that I didn't know what it was. I went through all kinds of scare stuff, and I was in the 90s, and there's a lot of HIV positive people in San Francisco Bay Area. I lived in the lower Bay Area, and so I'm like, well, how did I get AIDS? I don't even know,
Wow.
So,
no, isn't that the same situation with the root canals? And they used to use, they still do, gutta percha, and that's a material that has got this material in there so you can see them on the X-rays?
my understanding of that is that they're not got radioactive isotopes. They're just
metallic.
Yeah, they're just a calcium material that's very visible on X-ray, and it's just something that shrinks as it dries inside of a root canal. So the gaps and spaces create room for bacteria to grow, and it's a great breeding ground for tooth infection.
Yeah, they're we don't recommend those. So when you talk to people and just in general with what you know about mercury fillings, do you think it's a good idea to get them out regardless of how old or how many times someone has been around the sun, whether they be 50, 60, 70, get them out?
Yes, big time. Very, very valuable, very important step to take, and yes, big time.
Big time. All right. Stephen Heuer, if you have a question, Patrick at oneradionetwork.com. Patrick at oneradionetwork.com. So I thought we would dig right into some of the ideas that you threw out, which I thought was good. Let's talk about energy and the current model of nutrition today. Doctors say the number one complaint with people is, Doc, I just don't have enough energy. Right? That's the number one complaint.
Yeah.
What do you think is going on?
What's going on is that the soils have become depleted, which everybody knows, or I should say everybody that's basically been paying any attention to nutrition and improving their health has learned from Dr. Joel Wallach and or some expert on the subject that minerals have become depleted since World War II forward, when we introduced chemical agriculture. And when you look at the actual studies that have been done in modern times over 4 years, those mineral levels have been shown to be 8 to 68% below what they were previously in decades previously. And what this means is that the actual biochemistry of the body is unable to operate correctly due to not being able to get the mineral salts into its system in sufficient quantities, both the trace minerals and the calcium. And this ends up being a chronic problem, so your body will never be able to, you could say, have the proper electrochemistry and the proper level of energy production, and a bunch of other systems start to basically spiral out of control and or are dysregulated because of that failure to address that basic core aspect of, how we're designed to work.
Was it the vitamin C guy that said that as well, Stephen? That he's never seen a health issue that wasn't a mineral deficiency. That quote to, you know who I mean, the vitamin C guy. Linus Pauling. Yeah, did he say that?
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think I recall that, yeah.
I think he did. So minerals more than vitamins?
Well, they go hand in hand. You can't have one. They're all play their important role. But you could say that the minerals sort of control the DNA of the plant's expression, its ability to manufacture the vitamins and the antioxidants and the proteins and the fatty acids. The minerals are what largely control that. And so if they're absent or not in the right ratios, then the plant can't produce that material, and you get that's why chemical agriculture was introduced. So you have chemical nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. You get a water-rich plant that ends up looking good because you managed to grow it to a more optimal size, but you didn't ensure its own inherent nutritional density, so it became weak and electromagnetically put out signals that it was no longer fit for achieving reproduction, so that insects will want to come along and eat it. So then you use pesticides to get rid of the insects. So you have a weak plant that will weaken your body, but at the same time, it's about the only thing on the market that's available, at least for many decades, yeah.
So you're arguing that even those of us and most of our listeners around the world, we certainly know about organics and do a good job with eating as much organic food as we can. You're still arguing that even that is going to be deficient in minerals.
Yes. I'm not saying that that's true of all organically grown food, but for by and large, when you consider that the mass agriculture that people are doing organically and then supplying the health food stores with and or farmers markets, they're not, doing it with enough of the calcium and the trace minerals and the other fertility factors, because if they did, then the sugar levels of the produce, both the vegetables and the fruit, would have a much, much higher sugar level that you could use a refractometer and read. And I've done this.
The bricks. Yeah, right.
And those mineral sugars are the total reflection of that plant's vitality, nutritional potency, and immunity, because everything about that determines whether it will be able to resist insects or not attract insects. And it's also what determines, even things like drought and how drought resistant it is, or if a frost happens, how it's able to resist frost. It's all based upon the level of mineral sugars, and they're very, very low. Those mineral sugars are very, very low compared to what's ideal in both green vegetation produce and fruit vegetation produce, as you see it in the health food stores today.
And you've tested a lot of stuff, and you just don't see the bricks, the sugars there.
Right, exactly.
Just don't see it there.
Yeah.
So mineral sugars, we think of minerals as being more bitter or neutral. Or how do they? They
can be. The calcium's kind of neutral to sweet. It imparts. It's one of the most important ones. It helps the plant to produce the proteins and produce the sugars. And in fact, this is one that's really important to learn. Is that Dr. Kerry Reams? He's a famous doctor of soil biology and soil biochemistry and plant physiology, and he basically figured out a long time ago that the basic mineral requirements of plants in terms of the ratios was 80% calciums and 20% trace elements.
Wow.
And then he also figured out that those same ratios was what was applicable to both animal and human nutrition as well. And then figured out basically an equation whereby if you did not have certain, you could say, ideal pHs in your body based on your urine and saliva, that this was a reflection of your body's own electrochemistry being deficient, malfunctioning, congested, toxic, whatever. Therefore, that whole, basically he created a whole equation, mathematical representation in terms of numbers of how to see how well your body is converting food into energy and how much energy you're making at the cellular level based on these numbers. And it's an equation of both looking at about 6 or 7 parameters in your urine and then 1 parameter in your saliva. It's your urine and saliva pH is the most important parameter, and then there's your sugar numbers in your urine and your conductivity level of your urine, how much salts are in the urine. Then there's a cell debris number, so that a person is basically determining how much tissue breakdown is coming out in your urine, visible via how cloudy the urine is. And then there's your nitrate nitrogen over your urea nitrogen, your ammonia nitrogen, representative of your protein waste and how much of those are exiting the body. And that equation has been found. There's specific numbers that are representing ideal values to that whole mathematical formula. And basically when people have these ideal numbers, they're in the most robust ideal states of health. And the further away from these numbers their body chemistry goes, the more symptomologies of disease they have.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Heuer, well, let's just cut right to it. This idea, I've been using your Mineral Magic, or is it Magic Minerals? I never know which one it is. Is it Magic Minerals or Mineral Magic?
Mineral Magic.
Mineral Magic. Been using for about a year. You and I did I tracked my urine and saliva, a few weeks ago, for you, right? And it was pretty close, wasn't it? I wasn't. Now, so I guess the question is, if you take something like Mineral Magic, and you're getting a broad spectrum, and you can tell us where these things come from, won't that be enough? Won't the body just figure out, okay, I need a little more calcium, let me grab some here, you take it every day? Isn't this a pretty simple proposition or not?
No, because the Mineral Magic is just trace minerals with not a robust or high amount of calciums in it. And as I said before, the ratios that the body requires is 80% calcium to 20% trace elements. And in fact, the calcium plays a role in the binding. There's basically a term in nutrition or biochemistry called calcium binding proteins. So basically, calcium plays a role in binding proteins and bunching them up into prepared packages for the liver to use to create protein. And that your primary mechanism of repair in your body is originating from your liver. And so your liver has to have these calciums present to produce enough albumin and globulin proteins that become the foundation for most of the repair of the rest of the body.
Wow. And this works all the way back to the calcium not being in the food.
Yeah.
All the way back.
Yeah.
So, but people have been taking these calciums for the last 20, 30 years, but they're not really the right kind, are they? And they're ending up in their arteries. Yeah,
well, plus there's also the idea that, I'm taking calcium, and they'll take one kind of calcium. They'll take just calcium citrate, they'll take calcium orotate, they'll take calcium lactate, whatever form of calcium they happen to grab off the shelf and maybe seems economical, and they consider all the calciums equal in that the body's getting their calciums, but that's not true. There's in the same way that calcium goes into the plant of a lettuce leaf or a kale leaf or a broccoli plant or a corn plant, the calcium in each of those is slightly different due to the fact that the frequency of the plant is different. And so the body's used to getting, in ideal situations, your body gets a variety of, you could say, calciums from different foods. And certain calciums will push the body in an acidic direction. Certain calciums don't have any pH moving direction at all. They're neutral. And certain calciums will push the body in an alkaline direction. And so if your body's alkaline and you're taking a alkalizing calcium, that's a problem. You're not really helping your system. Your electrochemistry is not going to be benefited from that. If your body's acidic and you're taking an acidifying calcium like calcium lactate, then that's going to be negative. It's not going to benefit your electrochemistry. So knowing your pH numbers is the starting point of it. And part of this is that if you are not in your optimum, even though your pH numbers are, say, close to ideal based on last tests you did, then there's also the fact of looking at your urine sugars, your urea levels, ammonia and the nitrate, nitrogen levels. There's your cell debris levels and your conductivity levels. All those would have to factor in if you're needing to go further with achieving ideal health. When you look at the rest of the numbers, you'll see just exactly how balanced you are.
I see. So with mine, for example, you had recommended Cal-2, calcium hydroxide, and calcium gluconate, and you went by my numbers whether or not I was going to try to push it a little bit up or push it a little bit down on the different kinds of calcium.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, so your calcium gluconate is neutral. It doesn't push the pH either way.
Okay.
And then your calcium hydroxide, Cal-2, represents an alkalinizing calcium to push your body slightly more alkaline, because that's what your chemistry was needing, because you were slightly too acidic.
Interesting. Now, and you figured all this out over years because of constipation for you,
well,
right?
that was part of it. Yeah, I mean,
that's right. You really stumbled on all this, huh?
Yeah, that and adrenal exhaustion. Yeah, those two things were probably the biggest, you could say, Achilles of my personal life experience. Yeah.
Okay. Stephen Heuer, a personal life experience Achilles. Oh, boy. Isn't it fascinating, too? And, you and I have talked about it, but I truly think, for what it's worth, and nobody listens to me, so it doesn't matter, Stephen. I'll say it anyway. But that we all go through these things, especially you healthcare practitioners, you go through these things from a karmic perspective just so you can go through them, and you figure it all out, and you come out the other end, and then you're able to help people. I mean, I really believe that. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for being miserable for 20 years for us. But it was your karma, so I don't want to mess with your karma.
Exactly.
All right, Stephen Heuer, Patrick Timpone, and this is OneRadioNetwork.com. Isn't that fascinating, this stuff? Oh, yeah. So if you have a question here, now we're not going to be able to solve all the world's problems with your particular health thing, but we're going to dig into some more things about the calcium. We're going to talk about the liver, talk about water, a lot of interesting ideas that Stephen studies and looks at, and what else? Let's see. Oh, well, a lot of things. I won't go through the whole list. Right now, though, we are going to do, I think we'll do a little colostrum. And, okay, previously with Dr. Anthony Kleinsmith, we ask this question. This is Patrick Timpone and Stephen Heuer, and we're going to solve all the world's health problems in the next hour and a half or so. Stephen is synergistic nutrition guy, and One World Whey, and the so you also mentioned to me the other day on the phone that you have another mineral supplement along with the Mineral Magic. Why do we need two, or how do we know which one to choose?
When a person works with me and they actually just sort of like want to get on board with more of a complete program, I get them on a product called Mincol. And Mincol is a phosphated form of a trace element supplement that I have less history working with this one than I do with Mineral Magic. Mineral Magic I work with for probably 12, 15 years.
Oh.
And Mineral Magic has produced a lot of positive case histories all by itself. Gray hair reversing, less of an appetite, in general, but more physical energy, more energy at the end of the day, having a better appetite for like healthy foods and losing the craving for unhealthy foods. Lots of positive testimonies. So when a person's, you could say, attention to this subject is, I'm okay, but I'd like to do X, Y, and Z, or just X, and they just want something simple, then Mineral Magic fills the bill. When a person's sort of like wanting to recover from some chronic condition or is not, acute condition too, they need to be focused on some more precise supplementation. And I've learned that the phosphated form of minerals is more able to increase reserve energies in the body and and phosphated minerals evidently are so very important that the body likes to work with those preferentially over non-phosphated minerals. And so I'm kind of working with my understanding of how I've been taught this subject to incorporate the Mincol in a program with the calciums as a way to get trace elements in conjunction with the calciums. So,
and would you ever take both, like the Mineral Magic and the Min-Cal?
I don't think I'd take both. I mean, you can OD on trace minerals too, and I mean, you could for a temporary period of time because a lot of people are mineral deficient, so they can for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months before their body sort of like can have enough of the buildup of the non-chloride mineral salts in their system that they've got a beneficial amount, and then beyond that, it can start to become toxic. I mean,
I've always thought, obviously I was wrong, but that you can't get too many minerals, your body will just ditch what it doesn't need, but that's not true. That's not what I hear you saying.
No, yeah, what ends up happening is that when you're this ideal electrochemistry that I referred to earlier, where if you took your urine and assayed the sugar levels and the pH levels and the conductivity level and the cell debris levels and the nitrate and ammonia nitrogen levels, and you found out what those numbers were, the ideals are 1.5 and then 6.4 over 6.4, 1.5 sugar, 6.4 pH of saliva and urine over saliva, and then 6 to 7 conductivity and 0.04 of the cell debris, and then 3 over 3 nitrate nitrogen over ammonia nitrogen. And when your body moves away from that ideal, then the minerals or the salts in your body that are made naturally from protein metabolism, you get quite a few different nitrogen salts, you get quite a few non-chloride mineral salts, and then you have a small amount of chloride mineral salts from salting your food or eating seaweed or kelp or whatever. And there's 49 different salts your body contends with that are all important and needful in your body, but in excess, or I should say, when you have this bad electrochemistry, when you go too alkaline or too acidic, then these salts start to impregnate or salt out and precipitate into your tissues and impregnate your arterial walls, creating hardening of the arteries and high blood pressure, impregnate your heart and make the heart become weaker, leading towards congestive heart failure, impregnate your abdomen, making you have a protruded abdomen because your body doesn't want to get rid of that fat in the abdomen because you've got all these salts that are irritating in nature to the body that it has yet to know how to neutralize. And just in general, the joints becoming, are no longer as articulate, and the soft tissues hardening in general and losing their water content, which is a sign, which is what happens when people are aging. But they're aging prematurely because of this protein thing. Basically, I'll just give it to you because when a person doesn't have the optimum levels of calcium and trace minerals and this optimum chemistry, then their body ends up being less efficient at making protein. The liver doesn't make as much albumin. You can't therefore repair your body as well. You can't detoxify as well. And then you end up with a protein hunger, and you eat 40% or more protein in your diet to compensate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they find with animals. It's like they found out with cows, that basically a cow, when it eats an alfalfa that's high in these mineral sugars, so that its Brix reading is like 16, then that cow only needs 10 pounds of grain to produce 100 pounds of milk. And whereas a cow that's fed a low Brix alfalfa, a 7 reading in terms of mineral sugar juice levels in the alfalfa is only 7, then that cow requires 30 pounds of grains to produce 100 pounds of milk.
Interesting.
Meaning it needs 40% more protein in the diet to produce the same amount of milk, and that's the same with the human body. Basically, you need more protein to compensate for the inefficient protein synthesis going on due to this chemistry problem. And the neat thing about this is that it's like this gets into sort of like opening up the ahas as to why vegetarianism doesn't work for so many people, because they are not, you could say, getting these minerals to efficiently produce protein in their liver to repair the rest of their body. And it also speaks to why most Americans are just instinctively eating a high-protein diet to compensate for this mineral deficiency. So there's this high protein intake going on in America, and that is leading to all the problems that I talked about, where the nitrogen or the protein salts are produced in excess, and they're deposited progressively into the tissues more and more over the decades, creating all these different diseases that people deal with, the high blood pressure and the hardening of the arteries and the congestive heart failure and the
all that stuff that goes around.
Yeah, it's all happening, and it's because they're eating too much protein than what's their physiological design, and this is the missing piece. If you start to address what agriculture has not done yet. You start to address it with supplementation. You start to create magic in your body so that it can start to move back towards the direction of ideal health.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty. It seems a bit complicated or a bit entangled to figure all this stuff out, but it could be done, and you help people do it all the time.
Yeah, and there's 60 years of this actually being applied to human nutrition where consistently these numbers have proven to be 100% reliable. People that are the most healthy have the ideal numbers that I mentioned, and interestingly, in some cases, those rare cases where people are miraculously healed by God or whatever power,
yeah,
these are the numbers that they show.
Huh. So in a perfect world, if we had a Walt Disney movie and a magic wand, and we actually had access to exquisitely grown organic foods that had the whole deal and grass-fed meats and that, would we be able to do it with that?
If the world wasn't so toxic,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, for sure. But I still think that supplementation is needed on some level because most of us are playing catch up. We're trying to catch up and get our body not only to function normally daily, but also to deal with healing and repair and detox from previous stuff, plus deal with today's level of toxicity and free radical damage that the body's exposed to that makes for a more, this is why so many people are having to focus on their health more now than ever before, is because the ecological conditions and the technologies in the world today are so destructive of health.
Yeah, a lot of strange things going on out there, right?
Yeah.
888-663-6386. Here's a call. We got a lot to cover here this morning, so keep your calls nice and concise, if you would, please. Hi, who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello?
Hi, yes, this is Pat. You hear me?
I can hear you, Pat.
Okay, good. How are you gentlemen this morning?
We're doing well,
Good.
thanks.
Hello, Pat.
Okay. I have a question. I've been testing my urine pH, and I know it seems simple, but I'm a little dense here. So if you're testing very alkaline in the morning in your urine, does it mean you're very alkaline, or does it mean your body's compensating and you're very acidic?
Your body's usually compensating. You're producing a lot of ammonia to compensate, and you're actually seeing that come out in your urine as an alkaline urine from ammonia. That's not always the case, but that's sometimes the case. Sometimes it's that your body's mobilizing bone and other alkaline materials, and those are exiting the system, and so there is still a chemistry condition of too acidic. Usually it's too acidic, but sometimes it's not too acidic. Sometimes people are consuming green vegetable juice, fruits, mostly a vegetarian diet, and they're shoving their body too alkaline, and so they've got a problem in that direction.
But how would you know which was causing it? If you were too acidic or if you were too alkaline?
Well, it depends. I normally would do a consultation with you by phone, and I'd find out what you're doing diet-wise and what your history was, your symptomologies are, and what you've been doing. Sometimes you can take medications that can actually so alter your body that you become alkaline just from drugs. So there's a lot of different reasons, and until you have an actual one-on-one with me or somebody like me, I couldn't say specifically why you would be excessively alkaline in your urine.
Okay. Because I've been hesitant to get any of the calciums that you talk about, not knowing really, if I needed to be pushed more acidic or pushed more alkaline.
Well, what's your saliva pH reading at?
What's my what?
What's your saliva pH reading at?
Saliva.
I really didn't test the saliva as much as I tested the urine.
Okay, well, you need to do both. It's an incomplete picture without doing both.
So should match?
No, they're going to be different probably. The fact that you've got a urine pH in the 7s or higher, and your saliva is probably going to be, I'd say it's probably going to be acidic, but it remains to be seen.
Okay, so and if it were, it would indicate what? If my saliva pH was acidic and my urine pH was very alkaline, would it truly mean I was acidic?
Basically, I would have to look at you could say a chart that has a breakdown of what the pH zones are and then what calciums are needed, and that is what then I determine based on the clinical work done by Dr. Bedeau and Kerry Reams over 60, 70 years. Their recommendations are based upon what the saliva pH is. It has its own particular recommendations and what the urine pH is. Normally, if the urine pH is alkaline, you will be put on acidifying calciums, which would be calcium lactate. So that would be, you'd get a neutral calcium as well, like calcium gluconate, to support the body in that respect, and then you'd also get on top of that an acidifying calcium like calcium lactate. That's normally what would happen with an alkaline urine pH.
Okay, I hope that helps you a little bit, Pat, to kind of get you going where you need to go. As Stephen said, it's not just a black and white thing where if you're going to kind of look at this testing and say, yeah, I think I'm going to go there to try to have some fun and look at it. It's a little bit detailed, and you have to look at the moving parts, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. I was introduced to this topic in 1987, but it was not introduced to me in a thorough manner. So after applying it for 4 years, I did not get any results that were beneficially noticeable to me. It wasn't until I was introduced to it in a thorough manner that I'm now amazed at the results that I'm getting, because now the accuracy with which I'm manipulating my chemistry has made this huge difference. As you mentioned earlier, one of my Achilles problems was the constipation issue. Well, since I've been doing this, that has not been a problem at all. My elimination has been like the most normal it's been since I was a kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Here's an email for you, Stephen Heuer from Stosh. He says, Stephen, I've got your magic mineral product through Patrick's link. Really enjoying it. Could you talk about it a bit? Where it comes from, the best time to take it, with or without food, etc. Is more better? Is it possible to take too much? And all other details. So here's a mineral magic guy from Stosh.
Yeah, it comes from Utah in terms of the deposits, and that it's basically just a pulverized mineral down to the fine state of like a talcum powder. And this I've learned over the years that minerals have an enhanced, amplified, beneficial effect when they occur in combination with each other in certain proper ratios, which is, sort of like nature's creation. And that when you get that full, you could say, relationship of all the minerals in the right ratios together, as this particular product seems to create, then the body's electrochemistry works much better, and all these enzymatic reactions can occur, and your body's more able to, you could say, be triggered at the DNA level. At the DNA level, you've got codons, 64 codons that are awaiting the proper mineral attachment to signal that aspect of your DNA to create proteins, and those proteins within the cell will be for either repair, enzymatic production, energy production, detoxification. There's all kinds of different reasons that the DNA are going to produce proteins that minerals are required for that to happen. And this just happens to be a nice balance of all the elements that has this wonderful effect. And there's something about paramagnetism too. Basically, paramagnetism is that when your body is fed a paramagnetic mineral, then what ends up happening is the magnetic field of the body becomes stronger, and we know that the younger and healthier you are, the stronger is your magnetic field. And so this is a unique mineral supplement that it helps to, you could say, enhance your magnetic field because it's a paramagnetic product. Paramagnetism just means that the substance becomes magnetic in a magnetic field. Your body's a magnetic field. So it's in many ways, it's just got a broad spectrum. It's addressing what's not in the soil, and its results speak for itself in terms of case histories over many years. You could use this on the ground too, and plants thrive on it. It's used for both agriculture, soil, gardening, as well as human nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a cool place in town, Gardenville, I think they call it, or Natural Gardener, and they have the paramagnetic minerals. Like you can just buy pounds of it, and just shoveled in and put it in your garden. Yeah. They call paramagnetic minerals. Yeah, different colors too.
Yeah.
They have red ones and black ones, and pretty cool. So that's the way to get your garden snappy, huh?
Yeah, definitely. It's a part of it. There's so many parts of it. I know you've interviewed a lot of experts on this. They all have contributed something pretty valuable, but yeah, it's definitely part of it.
Mm-hmm. Patrick Timpone, Stephen Heuer. It is 21 September 2015, and Stephen is the head guy there at Synergistic Nutrition. They make the One World Whey, and we do, as you know, several commercials for One World Whey every morning on this show, Stephen Heuer, and to promote the product. So we'll probably get a couple little off-the-cuff commercials in here this morning. And here's one. This will be a slow pitch underhand for you on One World Whey if you like to hit it out of the park. Carol says, I often mix One World Whey with colostrum, coconut water, and grass-fed cream. Please let me know if that combination is helpful or hurtful to the effects of the whey. Well, it sounds kind of yum.
Yeah, sounds really delicious.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think that's
it's fine. It's
reasonable?
Helpful. Yeah, it's definitely good, because if you're introducing the coconut oil in there and you've got a little bit of cream too, then the fat is there for your body to have a fuel source so that the proteins are not going to be sacrificed for creating glucose. Because a lot of times if you just do a carbohydrate-poor protein powder, which ours is pretty low in carbs, you end up if your blood sugar needs aren't met, then your body will convert some of the protein in the whey into glucose first. And so yeah, that's good. And plus, fat can act as a chaperone to pull and help. Your intestinal lining can actually absorb some proteins more efficiently by having some fat attached to the protein. So yeah, it's the totally fine blend combo, and it sounds delicious as well.
Uh-huh. If I did that in one thing, I probably wouldn't have to eat for about 2 days.
I know.
I don't know how people can eat that much food, but I don't know. Can you eat a lot of food like that at one time?
It depends on how hungry I am. If I'm it depends on what I'm doing. But if I have enough supplementation going on, I don't need to eat much. I don't feel good eating, too much. But I do eat instinctively. So sometimes it's a large amount, but that's rare.
Kind of a fun thing she's got going on there. Grass-fed cream, coconut water, colostrum, One World Whey. Whoa.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing. Here's another one. Please describe why nutrition from One World Whey is superior to organic microwave scrambled tofu. My friend believes in 19... That's hilarious. I know, I kind of like microwave scrambled tofu. My friend believes the 19 grams of protein in the product, which comes frozen, is a healthy breakfast. I will share with her what I learned from you. Okay. Can you take on microwave scrambled tofu?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
First of all, when you microwave a food, you're messing with the electron spin on the atoms, and most things are all water-based, food substances, and so you're going to really mess up that electron spin. And I've heard it said that it reverses the electron spin. I don't know if it does or doesn't. Mm-hmm. But I know that if you use microwaving of water, you've heard this many times, Patrick. I'm sure you're well aware of it.
Sure.
And you feed that to houseplants. The houseplants will die in about 9 days. And microwaving is the worst thing you can do to any food or liquid. And if you want to study the subject, just go online and study it. But basically, it shaves electrons off of things, makes them free radicals, alters their molecular structure so that you want to talk about denaturing or bending and twisting proteins and amino acids into shapes your body can't use. Microwave your food, and you've got something that's so foreign that it's more inflammatory and damaging than beneficial. I mean, I realize that if you don't have anything else and you're in a situation, there's no choice, you're going to do it, but it's really deleterious. And if you have a choice, you do not microwave. You put it in the Smithsonian Institution as a museum piece, and you never use it again.
Are they still selling those things? Do they still sell microwave?
Oh, yeah.
Do they really?
Of course.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
My mom, God love her, she every now and then I'd go visit her, and she would take her little cup, coffee cup, and warm it up in the microwave. Oh, no, Mom, don't do that. Here's a glass thing. Just heat your water.
Yeah. And then to speak to that person's question more fully, basically, the One World Whey is non-denatured, and if mixed with water or milk or whatever, you've got yourself a concentrated source of protein that mostly I like to promote it for its glutathione production. It does support the liver and all the albumin protein of the liver, and it is a source of the calcium that we talked about, that it's so valuable and all that. But I like to get at people's awareness around that, your body needs more glutathione on a daily basis for detoxing and for neutralization of free radicals, and that alone improves liver health and body health dramatically. And One World Whey delivers that better than anything I've ever worked with, and I've worked with almost all of it, from liposomal glutathione to the N-acetylcysteine to L-cysteine to all the different things you can do to sort of raise glutathione. This has been the most effective.
Isn't that interesting that they keep trying to come out with these glutathione supplements because they know the benefits of the liver glutathione, but they haven't really come up with anything you could take internally to boost glutathione levels other than a food like One World Whey.
Yeah, and if they do, which is like the maybe liposomal glutathione that works somewhat, and people they've even bought some products are out there. They're rectal. I mean, they're like implants. You give yourself a liquid implant of glutathione, and how convenient is that? And yet the price tag on these things is off the chart. They're very expensive, and yet people will go spend that and think, oh, I'm doing my body so much good, and yet they don't even feel probably any symptomatic improvement, and yet they've forked over, $40, $70 for that. And all they need to do is consume a non-denatured, high-quality whey protein like ours and feed their body the ability to produce glutathione naturally. And their body, and then if you do the other measures of correcting your diet in other ways and you get your chemistry moving in the right direction, it's amazing the level of health recovery that you will experience given a few months of adhering to an ideal program for you.
Stephen Heuer, he's the head guy, Synergistic Nutrition, and we talk about him a couple times every morning as we promote what we really love this product, One World Whey, denatured, non-denatured, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and unflavored, unsweetened. And we recommend you pick out 2 or 3 your little faves, get the smaller containers through our website, click on One Radio Network, and then see which flavor you like the best and say, I really like that strawberry. And then get a 5-pounder and then really pony down, have a problem. Have a party, not a problem. Get rid of maybe some problems. But we appreciate Stephen being here this morning, and he'll be here again next month as well on the third Monday of the month. And we appreciate him, Stephen, talking to us like we're golden retrievers.
Talk to Patrick now, 888-663-6386. Or email patrick@oneradionetwork.com.
Longtime Nutripath Stephen Heuer, CEO, head guy at Synergistic Nutrition. You can go check out his website. And, we mainly talk about the Whey, Synergy One, and Mineral Magic, but he's got how many projects? You might probably have 1,000 products, right?
I don't know, several hundred at least. Yeah,
lots of product. And you can get it through oneradionetwork.com. Let's talk a little bit about, before we take another call, if you're on hold, stay there. We'll get to you. Let's just talk, get you some ideas about the liver. First off, what kind of things does the liver really like and the liver really dislike in the way of food, and some things, in your opinion, that we could do to keep the liver happy and snappy and doing what it needs to do?
The liver doesn't like to become dehydrated, and that anything like alcohol, which it's a dehydrator, is a very destructive thing to do to your liver and your body. Any food that basically is in that category of being too high in salts, that's going to dehydrate your body and make your liver have to work overtime to compensate with production of the water-rich proteins that enable you to produce, neutralize these free radicals, whether it's glutathione or superoxide dismutase or catalase. These various water-rich proteins have to be produced by your liver to compensate for free radical generating foods in general. So cooked vegetable oils are bad for your liver. High salt foods are bad. And of course, all these refined things, when you've got the high fructose corn syrup or sugar, refined sugar in excess in your body, these are all dehydrators as well. So, it's kind of one of the things we already know about as far as all the things that are in the category of what not to eat, all the refined foods. In terms of what makes your liver really happy and healthy is basically your liver requires enough calcium, oxygen, and water to work optimally to produce the proteins. And that there's two missing pieces in most people's diet. Most people are consuming not enough water or the right kind of water, and most people are not consuming enough calcium to enable the liver to do its job optimally. And I've done liver gallbladder flushes, quite a few in the past. I've done all kinds of wonderful liver protective herbs and herbal extracts, the finest on the market, and all that has never made my elimination and my digestion work as good as it's working now. And when I say now, I'm referring to at age 54 and doing the electrochemistry, the calciums that I'm doing for my pH needs and stuff has improved my liver function so much that my appetite's improved. I can eat more robustly. I need less supplementation overall in terms of compensating my body. My bowels are working better than they did in the last 30, probably 8 years.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So this is all evidence that my liver is getting really happy from giving it. And the other thing that's the missing piece is the water. So if a person is consuming, well, let's just say this, the ideal water, contrary to what most people are familiar with, is distilled water. So not deionized water, not reverse osmosis water, not purified water through some filter, but distilled. And there's a big, big difference, because when you distill it, you create water free of negative water memory. You create water that is free of any minerals binding the energy of that water, and that water is considered high-energy water because the electron power of the water can now participate fully with your body's liquid chemistry to create chemistry reactions for energy production, hydration, and cell detoxification. And distilled water is the king. And one of the great, great people out there who's been, one of the founders of the holistic health movement was Paul Bragg. And Paul Bragg lived to a very ripe old age, and I know he was surfing in his 80s in Hawaii, and he drank nothing but distilled water, and he also fasted on distilled water. Contrary to what people think, it's going to strip you of your beneficial minerals. No, that's not the case. It's going to hydrate you much better than regular water, and it's going to enable you to detoxify better and also have more ability to remove it. When I say the toxins, I'm also referring to the salts. This is the problem we have in America and in other parts of the world. Is this high-protein diet and high-salt diet leads to these salts impregnating tissues, aging them and dehydrating them, and distilled water does the best job at pulling all that out and returning your arteries and your cells back to a youthful, energetic function.
So distilled water is a very aggressive water, right? It's no minerals. You could put a TDS meter on it, and I think it comes out about zero.
Yeah, it's zero. It's zero.
And my rainwater actually comes out at 7, so it'll take 7-something out of the rainwater. I don't know what it is, but I take it out, right?
Yeah.
So it's aggressive water, so that's where the idea, Stephen Heuer, has come from. If you drink this aggressive water, it will strip the good minerals out of the body. But you're saying that's not true. That's
not true. What it does is it helps pull out of your body all of the unwanted unusables.
Unusables?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if it was true, then, Paul Bragg's life of distilled water exclusively and distilled water fasts would have turned him into an invalid or a feeble person, but he was not. He was extremely robust, one of the most robust people ever to walk the earth, from where he was as a child in his days of being sick to becoming a super strong, powerful human being, and maintained that all his life because of this whole proper chemistry that he was supporting. And the other thing was that he was mostly vegetarian. He would not exclude animal products from his diet. He'd eat them when he craved them, but he was mostly a vegetarian, which is also what happens when you're getting the proper mineral levels. And, of course, he was at a time period where much, much earlier in our history where soil mineral levels were still good or decent. And so he could rely on food as his source of nutrition and create optimum chemistry and end up having less stress on his body, but maximum electricity and maximum energy in his body, and feel as good as he felt. Nowadays, to get that, you have to be manipulating your diet with supplementation, the calciums, the minerals. You have to be taking the distilled water. You have to make your own distilled water optimally. I mean, you could buy it, but the best stuff is the stuff you can make. The best distiller you can use is the Electron 4 or the Electron 5 living water machine made by John Ellis. That's the one that I carry on our website because that is magic water. The first time I drank that water from having more chronic fatigue symptoms back in 2004, I felt so good I could do 50 push-ups right away.
So what's the difference between the Electron 4 and another just water distiller that is different?
It's vastly different in terms of that the distillation, he's got a patent on his technology, but basically he heats the water up to evaporation state, and then the heating and the cooling part, where these elements that heat the water up are evidently going high and low in their heat levels. They're not staying at the same temperature. And then this up and down temperature fluctuation and this cycling of evaporation, condensation makes it so the water gets multiple exposures to the evaporation condensation process in this special chamber, and it's being exposed to ionizing light. So in the same way that nature will evaporate water off the Earth's surface and the water vapor goes into the air and it's being bombarded by the sun's rays, which is ionizing light, you end up with water that is now free of any kind of virus or whatever organism thing, but also electron enhanced or energetically charged, so that now it's a charged electron strong water, and then that comes down as rain. And that is duplicated in this technology, the electron 4 or electron 5. The only difference between the 4 and the 5 is that there's only one ionizing light and a smaller electrical circuit for that, and the electron 5 is creating two ionizing light bulbs, and so you're getting a water that has, they say it has a higher oxygen content. They also say that basically the bond angle of the water changes. So normal water bond angle is 104 degrees, but when you do this special distillation, it becomes set to 114 degrees. It's like a permanent increase in 10 degrees on the bond angle. That widening of it makes it carry more oxygen, according to them, and that they've done oximeter testing on people's fingers, where you could literally have an oxygen meter on your finger and you can see your blood level, oxygen levels might be below 98 or 99. They might be down to 95 or 96 or whatever. And people drink this water and that oxygen levels goes up. And that's what I experienced when I first drank it in 2004. Like I had a transfusion of oxygen. I felt so much better. And then the bond angle also enables the water to hydrate you better. It literally gets into your cells better. So you drink this water, and you're getting fully hydrated. I mean, I don't have chapped lips anymore. It's like pretty remarkable stuff. Now the liver's going to love that effect that brings to it.
Cool. Electron 4. There, you can get one of those through our website. And Stephen's site, if you want to go buy one, go buy two. Send me one. Stephen, thanks a lot. You're a good friend, and
Thanks, Patrick.
appreciate your research. And take care. We'll see you next month, huh?